Speak No Evil, the brand new remake of the 2022 Danish film of the same name. In this video we will dive straight into its deeper themes and symbolism. There will be spoilers. Let us begin. Have you ever been to a place and had a creeping sense that something just feels slightly off? That's what horror does. It takes things that are normally good, wholesome and familiar, and twists them ever so slightly at first.
Very good.
And Speak No Evil really leans into this. Two families meet on holiday in Italy. There's an American family, Ben and Louise Dalton and their daughter Agnes, and there's a British family, Paddy, Kira, and the boy who is apparently their son, Ant. On a holiday abroad, everything is unfamiliar. The language, the food, the customs. It is circumstance that brings these two families together, and for the Daltons there's something comforting about meeting another family in the same boat. From the outset, Paddy is an unpredictable whirlwind of a character. Sometimes he's playful and reckless, sometimes he's harshly pedantic, especially towards Ant. He's intensely persuasive, quickly coaxing the Daltons into doing things that they find uncomfortable, but his carefree attitude is part of what makes him attractive in this unfamiliar land. Here is a man who knows how to have a good time with his family. Or at least, that's the impression. The couples toast their new friendship and part company. Hard cut from the golden sunshine of Italy to the grey downpours of London. This loss of colour is about more than the end of the Dalton family holiday. Ben is unemployed and Louise has been unfaithful to him. It is into this miserable setting that a letter arrives, a letter from Paddy and Kira, an invitation to stay at their English farmhouse. It's an attractive proposition. At this stage, Paddy and Kira are still associated with the fading glow of the Italian holiday. They represent something of what Ben and Louise have lost. It's calling to them, and they accept the call to adventure. Almost every horror film features a journey in its first act. It represents the move away from ordinary life and into the unknown. As the Daltons drive through the Dorset countryside, they are startled by the sudden appearance of the Cerne Abbas giant on the landscape, a 55-metre tall figure etched into the hillside. Very little is known about its origins, but with its erect phallus and raised weapon, it may be taken as a symbol of fertility, masculinity, and dominance. It is especially relevant at this point in the film. Louise had been receiving inappropriate photographs from a man who's not her husband, so the appearance of this figure on the landscape is especially confronting and embarrassing. Ben is grappling internally with his own insecurities as a man, as a husband, and as a father. Later in the film, Louise will say to him, "I don't know if you're with me because you love me, or because you just can't stand to fail." Ouch. And all three Daltons are about to enter the presence of Paddy, an extreme and perverse embodiment of confident masculinity. The raised club of the Cerne giant foreshadows the violence to come. Upon their arrival, the Daltons are greeted with a feast made from the finest produce of the local countryside. Lippi, the fattened goose, has been slaughtered, and the best meat is forcefully offered to Louise by Paddy, who has supposedly forgotten that she's vegetarian. In the Bible and many other religious texts, we read that the eating of meat is to be regarded as a significant act. When you kill and eat an animal, it has quite literally died so that you might have life. Meat matters. There is a theological weight to the simple act of sharing a meal. In the film, this particular meal is served with blood oranges, a reminder both of the Italian holiday these families enjoyed together, but also of the goose's bloody slaughter. This is an initiation into the house of Paddy and Kira. It marks the start of their aggressive hospitality towards the Daltons. A hunt is underway. Lippi the goose was the first victim, and the Daltons are next. Later in the film we discover the full extent of Paddy and Kira's dastardly plan. They befriend families of 3 on holiday in Italy. They kill the parents and they cut out the child's tongue to make him or her a child of their own who can't tell on them. Eventually they kill the child and repeat the cycle, such that they always have one young child with them. Paddy and Kira are infatuated with one another, but it's not a love that is for the blessing of society around them. No, it takes from society around them, and therefore it is not worthy of being called love. The boy who is with them, Ant, is not their son, but the son of a previous family who were unfortunate enough to fall into their orbit. During some attempted fox hunting, Paddy makes a revealing comment to Ben. He says that for him, it's not about the killing, it's about the hunt itself. It's about the chase, the deception, the bulldozing of social norms. In the words of Mike, his accomplice, Paddy likes to play with his food. Throughout the film, Paddy spends quite a lot of time bemoaning the modern age. He says that modern medicines treat the symptoms, but not the causes of our afflictions. He says that on Instagram, everyone is talking, but not being honest. There's something true about his assessment of the world, but most striking is the monologue he delivers at a local restaurant, quoting a poem called "This Be the Verse" by Philip Larkin. They F you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the faults they had and add some extra just for you, but they were effed up in their turn by fools in old-style hats and coats, who half the time were soppy stern and half at one another's throats. Man hands on misery to man, it deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can and don't have any kids yourself. It might be unintentional, but this is very reminiscent of what Christians call the doctrine of original sin, the idea that the head of the river was poisoned when Adam and Eve grasped selfishly from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden. And because we are descended from Adam, we have inherited his fallen nature. That's the Christian understanding. St. Paul's letter to the Romans puts it like this: just as sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin, and in this way death came to all people, because all sinned. Sin entered the world through Adam, and thus every human father since Adam has continued to propagate that curse, such that each of us have inherited our sinful nature, yet we are also complicit in our sinful nature. Now, this isn't to say that all of us are as bad as we could possibly be. No, in this worldview, humans still have immeasurable value and dignity. And we can reject the poem's semi-serious assertion that having kids is a bad thing. But there is no aspect of our nature that hasn't been warped in some way by sin. Man does indeed hand on misery to man. Paddy and Kira know something of this reality, the presence of evil in the world and the ways in which we participate in it and hand it down to our children, sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally. They recognise that the so-called medicines of this world address the symptoms, but not the real root of the problem. However, rather than seeking a genuine solution, they have chosen to double down on their cycle of depravity. They have surrendered to their flesh, to their carnal desires. Often in horror films, we're screaming at the main characters to run away from the scary place, and we're baffled by their stupidity if for some inexplicable reason they choose to remain.
If you are thinking of opening this door, don't.
In Speak No Evil, there are so many red flags. Louise's intuitions are on high alert. There are so many opportunities to leave. The Daltons even make use of those opportunities, but something keeps bringing them back and something keeps them captive until it's almost too late. This is what's smart about the film. It makes sense of why they choose to stay for so long in spite of all the warnings. It's because they find it almost impossible to say no to Paddy and Kira. Such is the manipulation at play. Hence the title, Speak No Evil. Ant, with his severed tongue, is literally unable to speak up. But eventually, through some ingenuity, he manages to reveal the devastating truth to Agnes. And Agnes creates a distraction in order to pass on the information to her parents. She uses a thorn to pierce her leg, faking the arrival of her first period. Even though it's not actually her first period, it's still symbolic. Agnes has just learned the terrible truth of this place, and now she is called to be brave. It is a coming of age moment, much like the onset of puberty. You can see similar symbolism at play in the classic fairy tale of Sleeping Beauty. The princess is plunged into a deep sleep after pricking her finger on a spindle. It's fascinating to note that a cyclical object, the spindle, causes the sudden appearance of blood when the girl touches it, and it is that moment that brings about a dramatic transformation in her life. She is plunged into a deep sleep as a girl, and she awakes as a woman. The blood produced by the spindle is often interpreted as a reference to the onset of puberty and the menstrual cycle.
At least in this case, it has to do with blood. In the case of Snow White, there's also, before she eats the apple, there's also a pricking with blood where she falls. You know, what's going on? And it does seem to have to do with puberty and with the transformation of the body at the time that a woman becomes a teenager.
So this is a key moment in the film. The Daltons are confronted with the terrible reality of their situation, and now they really do need to escape, hopefully with Ant, who is also a victim. The tension is almost unbearable. The Daltons know the truth, but do Paddy and Kira know that they know?
You guys have been...
Just a breath of fresh air. Oh, well, that is very sweet of you to say.
James McAvoy is having a lot of fun here. Just look at how much he does with his face.
Oh, well, that is very sweet of you to say.
Phenomenal performance. What follows is a bombastic final confrontation, culminating with Ant beating Paddy to death with a brick. There's a sense of deliverance because Ben rises to the challenge of protecting his family, and they do manage to escape, but it's not exactly a happy ending. We see a torrent of rage bursting out of Ant as he brutally kills the man who ruined his life. Paddy even commends him in the moment. "That's my boy," he says. Man hands on misery to man. The Daltons and Ant might now be free, but are they really free? I think that's the question the film invites us to consider as they drive off, and Agnes passes her damaged stuffed bunny to a weeping Ant in the back seat. What will be the long-term impact of Paddy and Kira on their lives? This movie expresses the reality of life under the sun. Without the hope of salvation, it's a bleak outlook. Man hands on misery to man. But whatever you make of Christianity, it presents a profoundly compelling response to the problem of human evil. For since death came through a man, Adam, the resurrection of the dead comes also through a man, Christ. For as in Adam all die, so in Christ all will be made alive. The first Adam brought misery to man, but Christ, the second Adam, brings life. Well, there we go. That's what I think of this film. I really enjoyed it. One of the best psychological horrors I've seen in the cinema for a while. My name is Thomas Thorogood. Thank you so much for watching. Do subscribe if you'd like to stay in the loop. And remember, it's deeper than you think.